From the Ministry of the Presidency in Georgetown, this is This Week with the President.
Welcome to another edition of This Week with the President, a weekly news magazine which provides you with an in-depth look at the policies, programs and work of Guyana's President. In the highlights this week, government convened stakeholder forum to discuss suicide prevention. Regional development prospects greatly improved with new mayoral appointments, and CPA officials engage government ministers in democracy workshops. Stay with us. The cost of suicide is too expensive for any society, especially one like Guyana where the population is a little over 700,000. In recent years, almost no community across the 10 administrative regions has been spared the devastation that suicide leaves in its wake. In light of this, President Granger called for greater collaboration among stakeholders and a national campaign to fight the epidemic.
Suicide in Guyana has not only affected persons directly connected to a particular situation, but the entire country. And this is from Baramita in Region 1, to Oriala in Region 6, to Aishalton in Region 9, and all over, even Region 7, Bartica especially. And we will know that the loss of life by suicide affects everyone.
On Wednesday, the Government of Guyana, through the Ministry of Public Health, hosted a suicide prevention forum at the Artichon Convention Center, engaging NGOs, government and international agencies, religious organizations, and civil society bodies.
Early this morning, to the sounds of crying, another mother shedding her tear, child. And why all the pain and suffering, and why all the senseless killing? Could it be that nobody cares? So many sons lost in the slaughter, blood running in the streets like water, half gun in hand, knows no friend, no war. Hunger selling death in my land, getting rich off the souls of we children. Began for the country, even there's no solution. Oh, I'm begging for the children's future. Oh, Jah, it got scattered by the color. How can we stop this mind pollution?
So I think this meeting is key, that we have everybody here to tell us what they are doing, how they are doing them, where they are doing, and with what resources they are doing them. Ladies and gentlemen, PAHO will continue to grant support, not only to the Ministry of Public Health, but also to the government in this area. It is an area that we feel very strongly about, and that we need to make some changes.
This is the first in a series of interventions that the government will be rolling out in an attempt to tackle this scourge.
We are all aware of the statistics. Guyana alarmingly has a suicide rate of 44.2 suicides per 100,000 people, with the global average for suicide being 16 per 100,000 people.
Based on the figures, it is estimated that one Guyanese kills his or herself every 2 days, all year, every year. Deaths by suicide were calculated to be 1,947 in the decade between 2003 and 2012.
Suicidal persons often dwell in a wilderness of unhappiness, distress, and depression. The existence and persistence of these conditions have made suicide a major public health issue in our country. As you've heard before from the experts, Guyana has achieved notoriety as the suicide capital of the world. The country's suicide rate, you heard, is one of the highest in the hemisphere.
The marked increase in the incidence of suicide has attracted a lot of attention both locally and from the Guyanese diaspora. In January, President Granger convened an emergency ministerial meeting which saw a renewed commitment on the part of central government to implement the Public Health Ministry's National Suicide Prevention Strategy through a collaborative approach.
The National Suicide Prevention Plan is a bold attempt to provide a framework which could produce better results than we've had over the last decade. Every suicide should be seen as an indication of unhappiness.
The President said that there must be research into the causes of suicide before remedies can be prescribed, availability of pertinent information throughout the regions, a multidisciplinary stakeholder approach to better coordinate suicide prevention efforts, and interventions to improve people's ability to cope with problems.
Guyana is a beautiful and bountiful and blessed country. Everyone can have a good life. Everyone can have a long life. Everyone can have a happy life in this country. The success of suicide prevention measures, therefore, would require an approach that helps people to understand that a good life is possible in this country. It will help to develop an approach that brings together all stakeholders and channels their energies and their expertise in this national campaign in which we're all engaged.
During the forum, presentations were made by experts on mental health and discussions were held on the National Suicide Prevention Strategy 2015-2020, which identifies various actions that can lead to a solution to this epidemic.
Putting powder and mascara over her marks of violence since she was a child and witnessed her father hand her mother his entire fistful of love that made her understand that he was not a man unless he hits you, kicks you, threatens to hang you, lips, eyes, arms black and blue, thinking that there's nothing you can do as long as he doesn't slap you or psychologically kidnap you, then he doesn't really love you. So every time Mary's husband's drunk, she would take her head like a basketball and slam dunk it into the walls just to show her who has the balls and who's the basket case. She feels her face collide with the backboard of shame. She feels somehow bound to him eternally by love and his last name. It's funny how Mary tried to pacify the pain by just spending her husband's money. She remembers it like it was yesterday. The pain, agony, and abuse is so fresh on his breath today. It was a sunny afternoon in June, and she was doing her chores so easy. In one hand, a circular sponge, in the other, squirting squeezy. She was excited to see him that day. It was their anniversary. Even though she knew that the only wages from her work would be mental scars and hurt, she was hopeful. In fact, she was soapful. She dreamt of a world where even the soap would sing, so she would line up Protex, Dove, Lux, and a Lifebuoy and have them all sing with Iris Spring in harmony. She was in the laundry so much, we used to call her Roma, but that was the same afternoon he left her in a coma. Standing over her unconscious body with his arms and hammer, he built houses but broke bones, broke homes. He cast columns but he broke bones, and even after the divorce and she would have moved on, the pain and agony from the abuse still goes on. She's still his wife. She took a knife and took her life. Written on her bathroom mirror were the words, too much pain, too much pain. My name is Mary Jane. See, I was on my bed one day and I looked up and I saw this big bug trapped inside of a spider's web, and that made me understand how abuse and circumstances wants to encapsulate every woman and every man. It ensnares us, breaks us down to the point where we can't stand for ourselves. It tears us down. You see, we need to inspire hope. Because the true criminal in this room is not just suicide, it's hopelessness. And see, we have a crisis. No, we don't have ISIS, but hopelessness has set up its twin towers in the premises of our metropolis. No wonder why people are leaping out of their burning towers. You see, their problems ain't just theirs, it's ours. So I'm looking at a room full of people who decided not to commit suicide today. So despite our struggles to find the answers, we need to look ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves, what inspires the hope in our lives? And share that with someone else to inspire hope in theirs. Thank you.
The municipalities of Guyana are now well positioned to propel the development of the 10 administrative regions with the newly appointed mayors and their deputies. This is perhaps the most important outcome of the recently concluded local government elections. On Wednesday, the new mayors and deputy mayors were administered their oath of office in the presence of President Granger, who, in his charge, underscored the importance of representing the interests of the grassroots.
So the municipal, regional and central government levels, we have to work together to develop our country. We are not enemies. We're not fighting each other. You all have sworn an oath to administer your municipalities without fear or favor. You have nothing to fear from the central government. And at the same time, you must be fearless in the execution of your duties. And you must not show favoritism to people of one family or one ethnicity or one social group. That is the vow.
These new office bearers will administer the affairs of what the President terms as capital towns, which in turn will be the engines of growth and development for the administrative regions. For the first time ever, Mabaruma, Bartica, and Letem will benefit from this level of leadership, a significant democratic achievement in itself.
We have work to do. We have a future to build. Guyana looks to you, the mayors and deputy mayors, the councillors, to provide for the economic development of the municipalities. And I expect that these municipalities would also become demographic centers, because once the economy thrives, once persons in the villages and the countryside and the rural areas beyond these towns, in Hozororo, in Awariwanao, in Aishalton, in Waramadang and Jawala, they now have capital towns to which they can flock. And we want these towns to be not compounds. And those of you who ever went into some of these areas would know what a compound is. And we're trying to erase the compound mentality. If you go to Mabaruma, you see a little compound. If you go to Mahaika Borbis, you see a compound. We can't develop this country with compounds. We can only develop this country with capital towns. And these towns will be the magnet for demographic growth. They'll be the magnet for jobs and employment and economic growth. They'll be the magnets for the business of that whole region which they administer.
The President gave assurances of his administration's unequivocal support and urged the new officials to be fearless in the execution of their duties and to steer clear of practices that will tarnish their reputation and cause them to lose the confidence of the people whom they have sworn to serve. The mayors and deputy mayors spoke of some of their immediate plans for their respective municipalities.
One of our plans in the council is to work closely with the private sector in terms of investment. And as you're aware, that garbage is a very big issue, and not in Curveton alone, but in Guyana. And we are working seriously to ensure that we can eradicate that. We have got great plans for Curveton. We want to make Curveton a modern Curveton. And that's why we said we need to involve the private sector. In terms of facilities, we plan to work closely with the young people, engage them in opportunities of learning skills and many other stuff. Our market area, we're looking at building a swimming pool, a flea market, and many other stuff.
One of the immediate challenges is to restore the confidence of the people of Linden. We have a town to rebuild. We have a lot of youths to give some hope and let them see that there is a future. We have our economy to rebuild and bring back the confidence in our businesses and our entrepreneurs. We have quite a lot to do in the mining town of Linden. Investors must return in order for us to survive. There are several things which has to be done in order to not take Linden back to what it was, but to make Linden better than what it was ever. And we want to move Linden from a township to a city, and I believe it is possible. Facing us in the municipality of Linden, we have over $100 and something million debt facing us. In fact, we are going into council on a negative, and I'm confident. I'm an optimist. I do believe in the sociology of enterprise, where if you have $1, you can turn it into $1 million. If you have an idea, you can be successful and become a millionaire. Now in Linden, we're going in with a negative, but I know once the people have the will, and I know they remain positive, I know Linden can return to a better place than the glory days of old.
I believe that youths in my area definitely need motivation, and they need to be, get programs initiated so that they can meaningfully occupy their time, and they need a technical institute so that they could improve in the area of education. And also, land is a big concern in my region, in Lethem more specifically. Persons are very concerned about how they're going to obtain a land, if the fees are going to be reduced, and if the age range for the applicants are going to be dropped. So that is definitely something. And a cleanup campaign.
Guyana continues to partner with international organizations to strengthen its system of governance. The most recent collaboration saw parliamentarians from the UK chapter of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association engaging government ministers on issues such as inclusive democracy. The roundtable meeting was aimed at sharing the UK's experience with coalition governments, with the government of Guyana and vice versa. It provided an opportunity for the visiting delegation and the government to learn from the strengths and weaknesses from each country's experience.
And I think what all of us are trying to learn, in the UK we have coalition governments, we haven't at the moment but we did, and here in Guyana, is how can we make sure that those coalitions, which have been elected by the people in a democratic vote, can work in order to develop the hopes and aspirations of the people. So what are our experiences in the internal workings of coalitions to make sure that we develop them? Because what's really important in any government is that we have that open and inclusive approach, and that we're doing it in a way where our electors have confidence and trust us in our work. Now, the problem for all of us in our different types of parliamentary democracies is there's no one formula. So we were here to share our experiences of coalition and how the Parliament is working and evolving, and also to look at what's going on here in Guyana, because actually there's quite a lot for us to learn as well.
During the meeting, the roles of a majority coalition party versus a minority coalition party were examined through case studies from Guyana and the UK. In addition, the role of cabinet committees, cabinet functions and expectations, and long-term aspirations were also discussed.
On the question of coalitions, obviously there's a lot of negotiation in putting coalitions together. In the United Kingdom, after the election, the coalition was put together as a result of the votes. And that makes it very difficult because you're then negotiating policy areas as well. Clearly here, the electorate was offered a coalition in the first place with specific propositions, and we were really keen to know from your experience how that had worked and whether that gives a greater understanding to the elected representatives of the broad approach and aspirations of your electorate. So we had coalitions created in different ways, but here the decision was taken definitely to have a coalition and to offer those policies to come together. And we really wanted to know more about that.
Meanwhile, President Granger said that he believes that many of the problems Guyana faces can best be solved by inclusionary democracy, and in order for the country to move forward, a higher degree of national unity than has been Guyana's experience for the last 50 years must be present. And now we'll take a look inside the President's diary. On April 3rd, President Granger attended the Guyana Veteran Legion's 3rd anniversary church service, which was held at the St. Sidwell's Anglican Church. The following day, he attended the funeral service of Mr. William Haslin Paris, who once served as Deputy Prime Minister. Subsequently, he was paid a courtesy call by Cuba's ambassador to Guyana, Mr. Julio Cesar Gonzalez Marchante, during which they discussed the way forward on a tripartite agreement for a project that is specifically designed to enhance the quality of life for children and youths with disabilities.
This is a regional project in which will be involved CARICOM, Guyana, and Cuba. It's the creation of a center to stimulate the development of youth, children, and adolescents with special educational needs associated to disability. So it is a project that should be starting in few times. I will not announce exactly, but we are very enthusiastic to do it as soon as possible. It's a project that will facilitate the preparation of persons, specialized persons, to work with persons with disabilities in the country. And also it will have the possibility to benefit the different members of CARICOM. There are 14 countries. So in this case, it has been very positive, the decision of Guyana to host it, or to be the venue of the project itself. CARICOM will be the linkage, and Cuba will do the technical assistance of the project.
The President also met with Reverend Noel Holder, Senior Minister of the Ebenezer Congregational Church at Anns Grove, who informed him of his church's plans to provide remedial education services to the community. While activities have commenced since the beginning of the year to commemorate Guyana's 50th independence anniversary, the momentum is beginning to build as May 26 draws closer. 50 new postage stamps were launched on April 7 depicting Guyana's heritage, the national flower, and the commemorative 50th anniversary logo. This was a collaborative effort between the Guyana Post Office Corporation and the Ministry of Education's 50th National Commemorative Commission.
Stamps can be considered national business cards and a condensed encyclopedia, for they reflect the true picture of a country from all perspectives, such as its history, civilization, custom, nature, social development, among others. Stamps have always been the unsung heroes of a culture, as the images they present on a small surface are pictorial representations of a country's DNA.
The stamps are available at post offices countrywide. This event officially kicks off the Jubilee celebrations, which will culminate with flag-raising ceremonies across the regions and a grand float parade in the city. This much-anticipated event is described by the President as Guyana's second independence, its year of renaissance.
But we were broken, and it's taken a very long time for us to start healing. I want us to celebrate that new independence, that second independence, the healing of the Guyanese nation.
President Granger said that Guyana's Golden Jubilee celebrations presents the Guyanese society with the ideal opportunity to rise above the issues that promote division and recommit to the task of nation building. That brings us to the end of this week's program. For regular updates on the Ministry of the Presidency, go to our website www.motp.gov.gy. Like our Facebook page, Ministry of the Presidency, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MOTP Guyana. Do have a safe and productive rest of the week. Goodbye.